November 25th, 2017. Hello, everybody. Brian here with the Artsaganza Show, and this is a preview of a TV series that I'm going to be doing some predictions on. Came out a couple years ago, and I'm going to be watching it, and these are some predictions I have for it. We'll see how accurate these are. But I do know it's for the TV series Childhood's End, based on the book by Arthur C. Clarke. The TV series originally was on in 2015. It's now 2017, but I just got around to finding out about it. Probably heard about it a bit then and just forgot about it and came back to it. And I have it. I have found out a few things about this, so just so you know, you've been warned. Spoiler alert. And some of the things I'm going to be predicting will give that away, even though I haven't seen the whole series. When I was looking for this, just so happened that a video came up here or there, and it just showed you the end of it, or somebody in an article said, Childhood's End, and I really was confused by this ending, and here's the ending, and they tell you it right there. They didn't really do even some of these no spoiler alerts at all. They just outright told you without warning you. So, and I was a little familiar with the book. I've never read the book, but I had looked at it, and it was certainly on a list of great classics of science fiction, just writing in general. I should say something about why I'm wearing this. This right there kind of relates to the show. You are here with the galaxy. And then this being the religious symbol, but having kind of a connection with eternity. Anyway, we'll talk about that more with some other shows that I'm doing, but I thought this seemed appropriate for what I'm talking about. So, long story short, the show, it took some changes from the book. They did change a few characters around, so I'm expecting that, which didn't even read the book anyway. But I've heard there's been some outrage about some of the things changed with some of the characters, and talk about that a bit here. It's a show mainly it's a mini-series. It wasn't a long TV series that ran in 2015, and it mainly is about, at some point, aliens come to Earth around our own time. I think it takes place right in that time period. And the aliens bring a massive advanced technology that humans can't really do anything about, but they actually help mankind. And they're trying to bring along better things for people, curing diseases. They have incredible powers. They can apparently bring people back from the dead, or at least recently dead. And they can cure things, they can feed people, they can make things appear and disappear. Various things. They're going to talk about that more in the series. But it seems to be a bit of confusion about some of these things, so I'm going to be predicting that. I definitely shouldn't have seen some of these clips because it really ruined this experience, but the big spoiler is, though, as the aliens are doing these things and helping mankind, they stay for a few years. I think in the original book it's like 50 years, and then in the TV series they shortened that to about 15 years, 14 years. But as this is going on, you find out the aliens work for another alien, if you will, a kind of super intelligence called the Overmind. Oh, and they start calling the aliens the Overlords, but that's actually our word for them. They have their own names. And as they stay, the aliens reveal themselves. For a while, they don't even see them. This part is pretty well known because it's even on some of the ads for it. That as the aliens reveal themselves, all of them look like the idea of the devil. The kind of stereotypical idea with the horns and tails and red and everything. But not just one. They all look like that. That's what everyone on their planet looks like. And that's an interesting twist. Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote the story, wrote a lot about religious metaphors and things. Even though he himself wasn't really religious, he studied it a lot. That's the idea then there's a reason that they go into with this series a bit about why they look like this and what that has to do with the devil. And are they here to actually destroy mankind, or is it kind of just happening? You find out that they work for this thing called the Overmind, which could be an image of God, this incredible power in the universe. And what it's doing is altering mankind to join it, but only mankind's, the children that are born in this time period. So it's like they're becoming part of it, but then everyone else isn't, and for whatever reason they can't have any more children, and that's it. So after these children leave, mankind will die out. This is one of the problems I have with the story, and we'll get into that. And that's what they find out. So while the aliens, there seems to be a bit of confusion with this. There's some of the questions, and just wrote up some of them to look at. The people had talked about, and I've talked to a few people about this show who knew a bit more about the book and that. So if the aliens work for the Overmind, and they're coming to help mankind, I think that why is it more the plan of the Overmind, or is it the plan of the aliens, the Overlords as they're called? Because they are not the same thing as the Overmind. From what you can see in this, the Overmind is just like a universe itself. It's a pure energy. It doesn't even have a singular form. It actually appears to be able to look like different people in one part. That might be explained more in the show. So it can just turn into anything, whereas the Overlord aliens all look the same, look like the devil, and some very similar. Are the aliens, when I say the aliens, I mean the Overlords. Are they coming to just, they know this is going to happen? There's a reference in one of the ads that they've seen this happen to other planets, and they're just coming to make it, to help this happen, or it's just going to happen anyway. That's part of the confusion. Why there seems to be a reference that the aliens are blocking people as they bring all these things. They won't let people leave Earth because they're just about at the point where they're going, we're building more and more spaceships, becoming more and more out of the Earth, and they're saying, no, you can't do that. So basically condemning them to stay on Earth. How do they do that? Do they force them? There's a reference to there being this big space station, which I think we'll talk about more in the show, that doesn't exist now but comes into existence. I'm through some of these things a little confused. Did the aliens just damage? Because you see like a damaged space station. Did they damage it? Or did it just get damaged on its own? The aliens seem to be forcing some things but not others. Excuse me, bit of a pitch there. I think I'm going to like this, but it's going to leave a lot of unanswered questions like this, because without trying to get too many spoilers for myself, I did find out some things, and it's like, wait a minute. But I'll come back to that after I've seen them. They've made up a few characters that were never in the original book that they felt would fit into this. They've changed what people do, and that's interesting, giving it a bit of more variety. Like one of the main characters in the book worked at the UN, now he's a farmer. There's a religious leader who did not exist in the book at all, named Peretta, and she is in the TV series and plays a much bigger role. And I believe, I'm not sure, but I think that character kills herself. We'll find out as I see this, because you see her playing a role, but then she seems to be gone, and it seems to be that they are religions are declining because of the presence of these things. These aliens doing so much to help mankind, and people are like, well, they're like God. And in a sense, this Overmind thing is God. It's a bit confusing, but it's an interesting idea. They also mentioned that people stop creating anything, really. They don't have much of an interest in doing artwork or any kind of thing, because everything is pretty much given to them. That nobody starves anymore. I don't think that could actually be possible. Even with the best of intentions, something would go wrong. And of course, going wrong, mankind dying off. But even before that happens, because that's many years later, I don't buy that would happen, and I don't buy that people would not believe in any religion. It would affect that, because of course, seeing the aliens looking like the devil, that would have an effect, and it does with some characters saying, "See, they're the devil." But at the same time, just because you cure diseases, just because you can do miraculous things, they still would find a reason for that. Like they tie it into a religion. In some previews of this and little clips, it seems like the religious buildings, the epic churches and what have you, temples around the world, barely anybody's there anymore. They've just stopped coming anymore. They are kind of praying to the aliens, if you will. I just don't think that would happen, so I have a real hard time with that. I do think there would be a reaction, sure, and people would struggle to come to terms with this, but they'd still want to know more answers. It wouldn't end all artwork or creativity just because you cure some illnesses. When you look at treatment for polio, types of cancer, many other things that we didn't have, that didn't stop people believing in religions. There's still plenty of religions all over the world just because we have these things. Just because we have spaceships and airplanes and we can live longer and have many things that people 100 years ago really would struggle with, and people in many places still do. You can look at countries that have changed, where something came into that country where they're being devastated by AIDS or cholera or something, and now they have the cure for it. Well, that didn't make them stop being religious. Even if the cure came from a bunch of scientists in another country and not necessarily from God or gods, it's still, I have a real problem with that. I don't think that would happen. And so that's a big problem with this, but we'll see what they say in the show. This also may be part of a series I do about religious metaphors, because it certainly has a lot of those while not being totally a religious series. And this is another problem, if they're going to change some things, and they make up a few characters that didn't exist in the original book, okay, and they even said, we want to expand more, talk about more than the book did. The creators said this. The more religious characters they're putting in, they said they really wanted to give more of that viewpoint. Well, okay, but you could have done more other stuff then. It's like, well, why that? They have, for example, why not just change what the aliens look like? I think it would be actually more interesting if they looked angel-like instead of devil-like, because that would tie in to the idea of angels being a good thing. Although, if you look at some of depending what religion, angels are destroyers too. They're both. They can be very loving, very helpful to people, and then in other cases, they're destroying a city. They're ripping people apart, setting them on fire. And these are still the angels. So the angels can bring happiness and love, or they can bring vengeance and punishment. So I think that would have been, if you're going to change it, change that too. Don't make them look like the devil, because of course when this thing aired on TV and on the internet, I've looked at a few people's reviews of it. It turned people off immediately seeing that. Especially in America. It was a production of many countries, but it was mainly filmed in Australia, so it was largely through them. It was broadcast on different channels in different countries, but done mainly through the Sci-Fi Network and the Sci-Fi Channel in America. A lot of the cast is Australian, so as many of them playing Americans, like people that live in America, but they do a good job. I'll give them that. They do a good job with the accents. But it's like, yeah, if you're going to do religious metaphor, do multiple religions. Yeah, and yes, in the original book, they look like the devil, but you changed other stuff. So anyway, moving on, I'll come back to that. You have the idea that the aliens can cure disease, but they're also, I guess people are becoming sterilized. Are they becoming sterilized by them, or are they becoming sterilized by the overmind? Because even if this generation of children gets taken, what about the next generation? And wouldn't it miss a few children? Not all children are born at the exact same time. That's a little confusing. There is one part where they mention a character who has a sick daughter, and of course the aliens can cure everything now. That's just my phone. The aliens can cure everything now, but he lets his daughter die, apparently, because he doesn't want them to cure her. Now, that seems a pretty cruel thing to do. And I got the impression she might not have been one of the ones that they take then because of the age. It seems the children are within a certain age round. Um, I'm not sure. But that they could force him, I guess, to save her. They could just save her because you see how powerful these things are, what they can do in some of the previews. It's basically he probably just said, I don't want you to. And they went, okay. so, um, so they can cure disease. They seem to be able to bring some people back from the dead. But there is a reference to this that a lot of people kill themselves over the arrival of these aliens, like I said, and also finding out that their children are going to be taken away in the ending scenes, and this was seen in one of the preview things I saw, unfortunately. The children just rise up into the sky, and that's a religious metaphor as well, because that shows up in a lot of, such as some Christian texts. I'm not a Christian, but I do know about that. Talking about the rapture, people just going into the air, or sometimes just disappearing. Apparently in the novel, the children don't do it exactly the same way, but they do go into the air. So I think the TV series might have even put it even more rapture-like than the novel did. So, but in dealing with that, many people kill themselves. Not everyone, but it does seem that the idea that they're the last. Well, the aliens have already shown that they can do stuff. They could stop them from killing themselves. They could bring them right back from the dead. And then apparently the Earth is also going to be destroyed by the children leaving. So it's not just the aliens are also taking animals off of the Earth, apparently. That seems to be a little confusing too. How can they take all of them? Or are they just taking like 2 of each, like Noah's Ark? Which I don't think that actually happened. But there's a lot, those are a lot of religious stories and religious metaphors. And this shows up in a lot of Arthur C. Clarke's work. I do a whole thing on 2001 and 2010, which are very good movies, which I have seen, which certainly has a lot in those, even though people may not think it. It's clearly religious. And he studied a lot of world religions, so it comes in from many things. That also is a problem with this. It seems to be the shock of people and the communication with the aliens. One of the aliens in particular, named Corellan, he's kind of their main leader, I guess. That he looks so much like the devil, but doesn't, he seems to want to help things. There's even a scene I saw with one shot where he says, I can't stop what's going to happen. I'm just a servant. But I am sad for what's happening. I wish this wasn't happening to you. And he's even interfering with a few people by telling them what's about to happen, but not telling everyone. So it's like, why don't you just tell everyone? Why isn't there more of a... But there's a choice. Like the character who's... There's a scene in one of the previews where a woman has a very sick baby. This is when the aliens first show up. And the baby is clearly sick, probably dying. And we're talking like a 1-year-old. And through various parts of their powers, diseases are being cured. And that baby suddenly gets healthy. I don't know if they ever come back to that woman and her baby again, but you assume that baby grows up and is one of the children who leaves. I don't know. It seems that most of the children that are getting taken up in the clips I saw are younger. We're talking like 10 or younger, but maybe they're in their teens as well. I'm not sure. And also, does that have to do with children born after the aliens get here? Because clearly that baby was born before the aliens got here, because it's already about 1 year old and being cured then. So is it something that's happening because of their arrival? It's confusing. And that to me would be an interesting choice, where it's like, if that woman shows up again, which I don't think she does, but her to say, well, I'd rather that my son, which I assume it's a boy, she said, I'd rather that he lived for these 15 years rather than not live at all, and rather than suffer. And then at least, because the children don't die, they just go live with this overmind. They like join up with it in kind of it's a very weird experience, I imagine, to becoming part of another being, kind of like cells forming together. So they're not technically dying. And you see some parts where the children are now telepathically communicating with each other, and they seem pretty happy about this. They're not, to them, this is just, what we're supposed to do. So I think that should be touched on. If that woman doesn't show up again, I'm going to be really disappointed, because I got the impression from all the clips and stuff, she doesn't. So that would be a very interesting ethical argument of, well, we want the aliens to leave. Can they even get the aliens to leave? Do they have any choice in that? You don't see the aliens as being like attacking the Earth, like just bombarding it, like War of the Worlds style. They're more just there, and they're saying, okay, look, one of the things they do is they do, through various means, and I'm going to find this out more in the show, stop all the armies that are fighting each other at the time. And when this book was originally written, it was in like the 1950s or 1960s, so there are different wars going on then than there are now or in 2015. But a lot of kind of continual conflicts they mention on the show, things we know of still today in 2017. And the aliens just kind of disarm people. They affect the weather. They don't kill all of them. They seem to be able to kill some people. But basically it's kind of just a demonstration of their power. Like they'll make a wall disappear or weapons disappear or something, like saying, okay, now stop that. So it is kind of a takeover, but you know that they could just wipe out people, but they don't. Like the one character who lets his daughter die, and when people are killing themselves, you don't see the aliens interfering. They don't stop that. One character gets shot by somebody else, and the aliens bring him back. He's actually dead, but he's only been dead for a few minutes. They also cure problems like people who are handicapped, various, like I said, illnesses. Do they replace missing limbs? Like if somebody lost a character who clearly has his legs but is in a wheelchair suddenly can walk, but he still had legs. Can they just make legs appear? Can they make arms appear? If somebody was blind, can they make them see? I guess so. If you're going to be able to do those kind of things, then you would be able to do these other things. And I'd also see what should have come down to was 3 choices, and maybe they do mention this in the series. And it could be, okay, the alien, let's say hypothetically this is given to the people. Okay, humans, the aliens say to you, you can get help from us. You will live very healthy lives, and we'll fix these things, and also possibly save people's lives that are seriously ill and let them live, and stop the potential of a nuclear war or some other kind of thing. Because you see some massive battles are just on and off, and it doesn't take too much to start firing nuclear missiles. It really doesn't. And that was certainly on Arthur C. Clarke's mind, I think, in the original, where I don't think the Cuban Missile Crisis had happened yet. I'll have to check on that, but it certainly would be around that time period. That might be, well, it's this, or we all die anyway. So that could be a choice. So you live a very good life for 15 years, and then you're just all going to die off anyway, because it's kind of an evolutionary step. As some of the aliens explain, this is just going to happen to you. They're going to go, and this is what's meant to happen. It's evolution. Yet it sounds very religious too. But there's a lot of religious people who believe in evolution, like myself, and it's largely an issue of the 3 Abrahamic religions. Many other religions on Earth have no problem believing in evolution in one way or another, and that could be talked about in this too, because the aliens looking like the devil is really going to affect those 3. Not every religion would be scared of that idea. You look at some of the gods of other religions, they look pretty menacing and pretty strange and maybe even a little devil-like, but yet they could be the nicer gods because there's both good gods and bad gods in most religions. So a Hindu might look at Corellin, the alien, and go, well, he doesn't look so scary, he just looks like a supernatural thing. But a Christian's going to look at him and go, devil, Lucifer, right there. So it's all in the perception there. And I don't think this show talks about that too much. I got the impression it was largely kind of America, Australia, a few places like that, not talking to India too much, not talking to some of the other countries, yet this is happening all over the world. So, and some people have accused it of this. I didn't want to read too much into their articles because I'd already had some spoilers, but people are like, this is a very white Christian movie. There are some people of other races in the movie, you do see that, but some people have accused it of that. Like, all these years. This thing was supposed to be made into a movie many years ago. But no, it took till 2015 to finally get it done, and some people were really let down. But back to the choices, sorry. So the first one was they get help, live great for 15 years or more, but give or take a year, and then you're going to die off anyway. Or they say to you, okay, your next choice is get no help from us, but you'll probably be destroyed by yourself and environmental disasters, and you'll live in misery, but you'll live for however long Earth goes on, for thousands or millions of years, but you may not be much left of the Earth anyway. And the aliens will just take our ships and we'll just leave. We'll just, bye. Or is the third option that you get no help from us, we leave, you live in misery, but you're only going to live for 15 years anyway, because this is going to happen anyway. Is that ever presented? It should be. It should be talked about. That the aliens made it, that you get an impression from the ads that they were ordered by the Overmind. They even say, we're servants. We have no control over what's going to happen with these children and that. We can help you with this thing and this thing and this thing, but we can't stop that. That's the one thing we really can't do. It's just going to happen, and the rest of you will just die off. Okay, but still, why didn't they just say that to begin with? Like, if you want, we'll just leave, and this is going to happen. They don't seem to do that until later. So, I am looking forward to this, but I think it's going to probably raise a lot of questions. But I got it right here. So this has been, oops, an accident. This has been a prediction for the TV series Childhood's End. There it is, which was made in 2015. And I'm finally watching it, and over the next few days, it's quite long, but it's not a whole TV series. I believe it's about just slightly over 4 hours long. So, and this, by the way, these boxes are not very good as far as this is all you get. When you look at the artwork that was on some great science fiction things in history and TV series, I think that lately a lot of them have been really lacking. They use these photographs now, not much in art or imagery, even if it's CGI imagery. I mean, 2001: A Space Odyssey had incredible artwork. You can even get it now on the DVD and the original poster, and this was the poster that people would have seen advertised. It's not that much to look at. So this has been a big problem with a lot of films and things lately. And I remember a time when there was a lot more thought. There was crap then too, of course, but I look back at some posters from the 80s and stuff, and it's like, wow, they put a lot of work into that. It wants to really grab you in. And now it's just kind of lazy. Yeah, I don't know. Put something on there. Yeah. This scene happens nowhere in the movie. The scene of a bunch of the cast standing around looks like a cornfield. That doesn't happen. There is one character in a cornfield and a couple others, but not all the main cast hanging out there. So why even put that? Just go crazy with it. Put some crazy artwork on it, have the aliens. I've seen tributes to stuff like this and other movies online that people do. That's better than the artwork that the studios put out. I've seen some tributes to some recent movies, and it's like, wow, that was better artwork there than was used in the actual movie itself or on the posters. And it's like, they should hire these people. So hopefully I'm going to be meeting some of those people. I've met some artists who do work like this. I do a little myself. I'll have some more of them on the show and can promote that. Behind me here, you'll see I got a Star Wars poster. That's a big collection of a bunch of the cast and characters from like all the Star Wars movies somebody did. And that's kind of an interesting takeoff too. But anyway, this has been a prediction for Childhood's End. I expect it'll be average, probably a B. It's probably not going to be that great, but it will raise some interesting questions. And one thing to think about is, just because they made this version doesn't mean it's the only version. Doesn't mean that somebody else can't come along and make another version and say, well, okay, that wasn't very good. I mean, we've had, just within the last decade or so, 3 different actors play Spider-Man in different Spider-Man movies. Look at the James Bond movies. You know, you can change things and do that another way. And who's to say there couldn't be some kind of offshoot of this? Or it might seem strange to have a sequel to this, but not if you change some of the plot. Not if it changes what happens to the Earth at the end and all the people. Like, maybe some people get off of Earth and take their kids with them, but leave the rest of the people. So, we'll see what happens. But think about this, too, and watch something like this, about how small mankind could be in the whole scheme of things. You know, over there is Earth. Somewhere around there. And that kind of, the show really makes you think about that, which I think is an interesting idea about the whole nature of the universe. So, this has been Brian for Artsaganza. This is the prediction for Childhood's End. And I approve this message. See you later, everyone.